Welcome to Clairaudient Stories. I am your innovative host, Sharice, narrator, writer, and intuitive story guide, providing healing through storytelling, insight, wisdom, and so much more. Sunflower Connections. As teenagers, a crush could cause us to get all flustered, nervous, and giddy. You would spend your time thinking about the person who has captured your vision and daydream about how and when you will come together. Sometimes the fates would work its magics in your favor, and other times, well, so what does a crush mean for those of us well past the teenage innocence and untainted view of what attraction entails? As luck would have it, I am currently in the trenches of having heart palpitations for another human being. Don't get me wrong, I can definitely be a hopeless romantic, but through trials and tribulations of previous relationships, I have a structure higher than the Eiffel Tower and it stretches for miles like the Great Wall. Okay, that's not entirely true, because for the past 2 years, I have been working on gaining confidence, articulating what I want, implementing boundaries, and being my most unicorn self with a twist. It's been a dance of reconfiguration of the mind, body, and soul. Shout out to those rocking their reconfiguration crowns. Anyway, back to this whole crushing thing. About a year ago, I decided to follow my inner no in a sea of breadcrumbs that led me to a particularly odd section of Florida. Odd as in, no one has ever heard of it. At least I haven't. Now, mind you, I was still living in my vehicle at this time, so I had no set residence and no obligation to be in a set place. But I needed to figure out where and what I was doing about my very uncomfortable situation. These breadcrumbs started with me applying to be a cashier at a local nature springs, which then led me to an area with a popular grocery store and a hotel. I was more so eyeing the hotel because, based on Car Life research, some hotel parking lots are great for vehicle sleeping. But you didn't hear that from me. Anywho, this brings me to how I met Mr. Energy Disruption. I was an Instacart shopper for quite some time, and that nearby market I mentioned was my cash ticket in one of two markets in the area for miles. As I said, I was in a section that no one has ever heard of. So one day, while in my thought of thoughts and pondering over what I needed to stay grounded and calm, the weird suggestion of sunflowers came to mind. For those of you that don't know, sunflowers has an energy of new life, change, boost of confidence, and triggers a multitude of unexpectancies. It also represents gradual growth, and you guessed it, connections. With this, I had the grand idea to see if maybe, just maybe, that one particular grocery establishment gave away wilted flowers for free or a discounted rate. Listen, this diva was trying to save on funds and keep her sanity at the same time, okay? Anyway, I walked into the store determined to get an answer, and there he was, a dreamy piece of deliciousness that stole my heart at first sight. Sorry, I couldn't resist. That's definitely not how it happened. There were no Cupid's arrows or magical orchestra filling the room with love notes when I encountered him. Moving on, I approached a gentleman roughly the same height as me and inquired about my sunflower interests. He was happy to share that while unfortunately the flowers at the store never gets to a point of discard, that I should try another store that was roughly 15 to 20 minutes away. It also prompted a convo on why I needed the flowers in the first place. And to that, I responded, I like to use them for projects. So let's fast forward a bit, shall we? Over a few months, I started hanging in the area way more than I planned. I got a job at a tea house and continued to do delivery gigs on the side. In the midst of this, I would run into this guy a couple of times a week. We would have impromptu convos about pushing forward through life, my trip to the Keys, and even joked about going there together. I didn't think much about our brief moments, as I assumed they were generic customer service engagement, but something was definitely there, and the head of that sunflower was about to emerge. The funny thing about connections is that they can be formed whether we seek them or not. And when one flows into an energy that enhances their own, unexpected and universal webs begin to weave. However, that's a clairaudient information session for another time. For right now, let's keep it simple. In my case, this connection started from the inquiry of a sunflower, and based on its previously stated representation, this connection was an unexpected occurrence and one that was taking its sweet time to blossom. It takes roughly 2 to 3 months for a sunflower to grow and bloom, and it took about that long for me to realize that I've grown an interest. Unfortunately, he and I had polar opposite lives, and while I could only speak from the external view, the reality was the reality. He was a store manager, and I was figuring out life while living in my car. How could I even compete? Anyway, for as much as I didn't want to admit it or acknowledge, the attraction grew stronger and it tormented me. But why? Why, in the middle of the biggest shift of my life, would I want to even entertain such an interest? The days passed, and I still saw him from time to time. We would hold our quirky and brief convos, then I would shy away, leaving to do what one does in a grocery store. There were many a day I found myself daydreaming about him, wondering what it could be like to hang out beyond the walls of that store. Wonder what his likes and dislikes are, what motivates him, brings passion to his heart, and what drives his optimism about life, which is something I was heavily drawn to during our brief encounters. Anyway, I decided I had to keep pushing forward with my own endeavors and continue to build my foundation for not only survival, but my own driven purpose. This meant I had to stop pining and put my interests aside. But that, however, was very short lived. As I said earlier, once an energy begins to flow, unexpected universal webs begin to play. One evening, I walked into that market aiming to buy a few things before I parked at the hotel on the hill for the night. I told myself I was not going to fully engage with Mr. Optimistic, just keep it simple and cordial. So I walked in, past the deli counter, and halfway through the produce section to see his handsome face restocking a few items. I waved hello, and he waved back. I then began to proceed forward when he abruptly interjected from across the room. I'm going to another store. I paused, turned around, and replied, sorry, what? Thank you for joining me for story time. If you liked what you heard, please hit that notification bell. And if you want to share some love, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Until next time, listeners, stay safe, be well, and may the journey continue.